We are live. And
Yeah.
okay, so good. Welcome to the next lecture. We have already, yeah. So I think something got
Yeah.
stuck in
Yeah.
between.
You got cut out a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So welcome to the next lecture. I think we have done 4 lectures for the day. So I hope things are going well. And thanks, Rok, for joining. This is going to be another important lecture. And I know the crux of the lecture because I've worked with you closely on this, and I have completely subscribed to your ideology. And I've been working with the ideology for about 6 months now. So it's very good that you're actually substituting someone. But thank you so much for doing that at the last moment at a very short notice. So I think I'll just leave it to you from here, and I'll be here only. So yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Cool.
So I'll be off. My audio and video will be off, but I'll be here. So if you just let me know or tell my name, I'll be there.
Okay.
And don't
Good to
worry
know.
about the lecture. I mean, don't worry about the questions. If there is any, I'll just let you know.
Okay.
And okay, so you just yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, world. As you can hear, my voice is a little deep this morning. So please apologize. I'd like to apologize. I'll have to clear my throat here and there. It's due to the grass. Yeah, Ashwin asked me if I can jump in and substitute another speaker. And I quickly prepared a presentation on the Vargas. I call it Demystifying the Vargas, because this is one subject in Vedic astrology that is quite mysterious. There are many different ideas floating around about it. Yeah, I got very much intrigued by it immediately when I started to study Vedic astrology, because it's quite puzzling having all these different Varga charts there to interpret. And eventually because I also knew that in the West, in the modern times, some astrologers are using what is called harmonic charts. And I wanted to know what's the difference between the two, and eventually got totally pulled into it and made quite a bit of research, which I'm going to share briefly with you today. So I'll share my presentation. Okay. Right. Ashwin, is this
All
is,
good,
vis
all
is
good,
it
all
visible?
good, all
Okay,
good, all good.
great.
It's a great picture and
Okay,
screen. Yeah.
so we proceed with demystifying Vargas, the subdivisions of the zodiac. So what are the Vargas? Vargas are different subdivisions of the zodiac. So the zodiac gets further subdivided into smaller portions, increasingly smaller portions. Usually they are thought to be unique to Vedic astrology. It's something that a person kind of first learns, or what first jumps out when we are starting to learn Vedic astrology is the Vargas. It seems very unique. But it's interesting to see that they were also used in the old Hellenistic astrology and also medieval Persian astrology, and also, as I said, in modern Western astrology as harmonic charts. There exist different sets of Vargas, although today mostly people are familiar with the Shodasha Varga scheme of Parashara, found in Brihat Parashara Hora. But prior to that, in Brihat Jataka, the great Varaha Mihira introduces 6 Vargas in a Shadvarga scheme. And then in Saravali of Kalyanavarma introduces 7 Vargas, the SAPTAVARGA. He also adds the Saptamsha to other Vargas. In Paladipika, Mantreshwara introduces 10 Vargas, Dasha Varga, and Parashara Hora introduces additionally 16 Vargas, with which most people are familiar today. So we see that the earlier authors, I mean, I consider Parashara Hora to be a later text, sort of 10th to 12th century or so. So Varahamihira only used 6 Vargas. And we will now look at the SAPTAVARGA, because here are, in this scheme, we find the Vargas that are more or less present in the earlier texts. Of course, we begin with Rashi, which is the first division, the first 12th division. And then the next one is Hora, where we split the sign into 2 parts. So it's called the D2, the division 2, second division. Then we have the third division, Drekana, which is in the West it's called decans or faces. Then the Trim Samsha, which is D5, although usually people are consider it to be D30, which in my opinion, according to my research, is an erroneous understanding, because with Trim Samsha, as we will see later, we will look at every division up close. The Trim Samsha is actually dividing a sign into 5 parts, not 30 parts. Then the Saptamsha, the 7th division, and the Navamsha, the 9th division, the most known one and the most commonly used one, and the Dvadasamsha, the 12th division, which we also find extensively used in Hellenistic and Persian astrology. And I will give a lecture on the Dvadasamsha later this day at 3:30 p.m. Central European time. The question is, are these Vargas that we have talked about today, are these harmonics? Yes, there are, but only Saptamsha and Navamsha are harmonic charts, so they are equivalent to the 7th and the 9th harmonic. The rest of them are not harmonic, but are constructed according to a specific rule for each Varga. The harmonic Vargas are called PARIVRITTI, or Mesh-Adi Parivritti, which means Mesh-Adi from Aries onwards, and Parivritti means something like fully turning. So the zodiacal order is fully turning from Aries to Pisces around the circle. Can they be drawn as charts? Can Vargas be drawn as charts? That's one question that we will address, and we will also see then graphically why some of them can be and why some of them cannot be. So yes, only Parivritti Vargas, the harmonic Vargas, can be drawn as charts. And the only text that suggests the use of Vargas as charts is Jaimini Upadesha Sutra. And we will also see why is that so. Jaimini supposedly only used Parivritti Vargas, the harmonic Vargas, and he didn't use the Parashari, so-called Parashari Shodasha Varga style Vargas. So what is the difference between these Parivritti harmonic Vargas versus the rulers, the rulership Vargas? So one is a harmonic Varga, where we are dividing the circle, so the whole circle we are dividing by different factors, and we create full natural micro zodiacs that are going deeper and deeper with each subsequent division. With the regular Vargas, which I call here rulership Vargas, we are assigning rulers of particular section of the of a circle, so signs, to rule specific parts of a sign. There are actually no signs in rulership Vargas, it's just about the ruling planets. So we will look at things graphically now. and I will present a rulership version and the Parivritti version of each Varga. So this is the second division. It's the Hora, where we split the sign into two parts. So today people are trying to construct a chart out of the Hora. And there are various approaches to it, various versions. But what all texts, all the classical Indian texts agree upon is that the Horas are ruled by the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon are the rulers of the Horas. And it's said that for even signs, it gets reversed. So for odd signs, the first Hora is ruled by the moon, by the sun, sorry, and the second is ruled by the moon. And for even signs, so Taurus here, the first Hora is ruled by the moon, and the second by the sun, and it repeats throughout the zodiac. So nowhere does it say that we should create a chart out of this, because it's clear that we can't. We only have two rulers, sun and moon. But some attempt to do that, and one way is to put all the planets that fall in the sun's Horas in Leo, and those that fall in moon's Horas, they put it in Cancer. But there are also other versions of it, which I'm not going to go into, because I am more concerned with what is universal, and this is the Hora that is universally accepted in all the texts. So just sun and moon. And this is a Parivritti Hora. And this is a Hora that has signs. But as we see, since it is a Parivritti, a harmonic division, we are splitting the whole circle in half. And one zodiac runs from Aries to Libra, so we see Aries to Pisces. And another zodiac runs from Libra to Aries, so again Aries to Pisces, natural order, uninterrupted. So we have split the zodiac in half and went to a deeper level. So here the whole zodiac is 180 degrees. It's no longer 360. And if we would construct a chart out of this, of course we can do that, because we simply stack the two 118 degrees zodiacs on top of each other. So if we have, say, a planet in Taurus, in the second Hora of Aries, which is Taurus, and a planet in the second Hora of Libra, which is also Taurus, they will appear conjunct. They will be in the same sign when we stack the two 118 degrees zodiacs on top of each other. So in the Rashi chart, in the main chart, they will appear to be in opposition, right? They are 180 degrees apart, but in Hora chart they will appear as being conjunct in Taurus. So we move to the Drakana. The Drakana is very interesting because we also find it pretty much in all the texts, but it's treated quite differently, and usually it's used mostly for giving additional qualities to the character and appearance of the person. So we look at the ascendant, we look at which Drakana the ascendant falls, and then certain characteristics are also imprinted onto the appearance and character of the person. This is the type of Drakana that we find in kind of starting from Varaha Mihira and then later to Saravali, Paladipika, Parashara Hora. And I call it a triplicity Drakana, because if we look at the sign of Aries, we see that the three portions of Aries are ruled by the planets that rule the trine signs of Aries. So the first one is ruled by Mars, which is the ruler of Aries. The second one is ruled by the Sun, which is the ruler of Leo, which is the first trine sign of Aries. And then the third is ruled by Jupiter, which is again a trine ruler of Sagittarius. So we have rulers of the same element. So it's a triplicity. It's based on the principle of triplicity. And then for each sign, the rulers of the same triplicity get to rule the portions of the signs. Some would say, okay, this is Aries, this is Leo, this is Sagittarius. But we cannot really break the zodiac like this. And it's always, if we look at the old texts, they don't speak, when it comes to techniques, they don't speak about the signs, but they speak about the rulers. You know, they would say, okay, the Dracana Lord of, say, of the Sun, strong and aspecting the ascendant, gives this and this and this. So they are concerned with the rulers of the signs. So basically it's like these three planets, they have something to say about this sign. They have some influence here. They have some rulership. And that's it. It's not about signs. But on the other hand, the Parivritti Dracana, the harmonic Dracana, is about signs. Because in the same way as in the Parivritti Hora, as we have seen, we have the natural order of the zodiac. But here it's three times. We are splitting the circle into three portions. So one runs from Aries to Leo, another one from Leo to Sagittarius, and the third one from Sagittarius back to Aries. So again, it's based on triplicity, but in a different way. We are actually putting a zodiac three times around the circle, while in the previous example, if we go back a little bit, what we've been doing, we've been putting the circle into the sign. So different points in a circle. So we have put the ruler of Leo into the sign and the ruler of Sagittarius into the sign. But here we're not doing this. If we look here, the sign of Aries is just the natural order. So it's Aries, Taurus, Gemini, cardinal fixed dual. So natural order of the sign of the zodiac three times, each consisting of 120 degrees. So when we construct a Parivritti Dracana chart, it is that we are stacking three zodiacs of 120 degrees upon each other. So if we have a planet in the first Dracana of Aries, and a planet in the first Dracana of Leo, and a planet in the first Dracana of Sagittarius, which means that in terms of Western aspects in the Rashi chart, they will be in a trine aspect. They will appear conjunct together in the Parivritti Dracana chart, because they are basically on the same spot in the zodiac, but we have stacked three zodiacs upon each other. So, and the next one is the Trim Samsha. In my opinion, this is the most misunderstood of all the Vargas, because usually they say this is the D30, and some even attempt to create the D30 chart. They create sort of like a 30th harmonic, so a sign for each degree, which might or might not be useful, but it's not what Trim Samsha is all about. In all text you will find only this, the explanation that the Trim Samshas are ruled by the 5 non-luminary planets. in terms of Vedic astrology, we could say that they are ruled by 5 elementary planets. And yeah, this is the case. If we look at the sign of Aries, it's ruled by the 5 portions, so it's D5. We are dividing the sign into 5 parts. The first part is ruled by Mars, then by Saturn, then by Jupiter, then by Mercury, and then by Venus. We also see that the portions are of unequal size. Mars gets 5 degrees, Saturn gets 5 degrees, Jupiter gets 8 degrees, then 7 degrees for Mercury, and again 5 degrees for Venus. And it reverses for even signs. So it's the same rulers, same amount of degrees, but they reverse for even signs. And what is interesting here is that there is a particular idea behind the order of the planets. It's not just something random, and we will just soon see why. But I'll just mention here that it's interesting that they are of unequal sizes, and we have another such division present in Hellenistic and Persian astrology called the bounds or the terms, which are also ruled just by the non-luminaries, but the order and the distribution of degrees there is far more complex and uneven throughout the signs. It's different in each sign. So this might be just a simplified, a more idealized version of it, and it first appears in Yavana Jataka, which is supposedly like a hybrid text of Greek and Indian astrology, and it's the first horoscopic text of India that we have. So no signs, we cannot create a chart out of this. It's just about the rulers again, excluding the sun and the moon. But what is interesting that the Trim Samsha actually follows the rule of the Hora. And it's also interesting that the Horas are only ruled by the luminaries, by the sun and the moon, and the Trim Samshas are ruled by the non-luminaries, the elementary planets, which are like agents of the sun and the moon, agents of consciousness. The elements through which consciousness experiences the world. So let us see how does the order of the Trim Samshas correspond to the Horas. So here we have the Hora of the Sun, and we have Mars and Saturn here. Mars rules fire and Saturn rules air. So we have 2 male elements in the male Hora, in the Sun's Hora. Then we have Jupiter, which rules ether, which is a neuter element. Half of it is falling in the Sun's Hora, half of it in the Moon's Hora, because it's neuter. Then we have Mercury for earth and Venus for water. 2 female elements falling in the Moon's Hora, in the female Hora. So there's no coincidence, you know. The person who devised the Trim Samshas, he followed the rule of the Horas, and the point of the Trim Samshas is really about elements. And their use, we can see that it's said that it's for ill effects. We should look, you know, for ill effects. So this is handy for medical astrology, because we then see if a planet that rules a particular element is falling in a compatible element. And that's basically what it could be used for. And the only documented use of the Trim Samshas, we find it in, I think it's in Saravali and Parashar Hora, or maybe it's Brihajataka, I'm not sure now. But it's just about female horoscopes. That's the only documented use. It just says, okay, in which Trim Samsha the ascendant of the woman falls in. So if the ascendant is in Jupiter's Trimsamsha, she will be a chaste, obedient wife, joyful, and so on. If it's in the Trimsamsha of Mars, then she will be obstinate, independent, and so on. Okay, so this is the Trimsamsha from a little bit of a, I suppose, fresh perspective. And I hope it clarifies why this is not a D30 and why it can't be used as a separate chart. And I would just comment here on the name Trimsamsha, because the name Trimsamsha suggests that this is the 30 portions of a sign, but there already is something that is 30 in a sign. It's the degrees. So my speculation about the name is why this fivefold division is called the Trimsamsha, because we are dealing with the rulership over different amounts of degrees, so it's basically the degree rulers. And as we've seen, each of the planet gets to rule different amount of degrees. Okay, let us proceed. Next one in the scheme of SAPTAVARGA is Saptamsha, the seventh division. Here we again have a Parivrittì Varga. So the Saptamsha is by default, in most of the text, it is a harmonic division. But Yavana Jataka, on the other hand, constructs a very specific, unique Saptamsha based on the rulership, the rulers of the signs in natural order. But we only find it there, so I left it out. Varahmihira, Kalyanvarma, Mantreshwara, Parashara, they all talk about this Saptamsha. So here we have the natural order of the signs repeated 7 times around the circle. And we see that a beautiful septagon is formed. So natural order from Aries to Pisces, 7 times around the circle. And in the Parivrittì Vargas, the harmonic Vargas, it is the pattern, the number that suggests the nature or the theme of the Varga. Because we find in Parashara Hora, we find that different topics are assigned to different Vargas. For example, the Drekana for happiness through co-borns, and then Chaturtamsha for what is it? I forgot what it is. And then Saptamsha for children, Navamsha for spouse, and Dvadasamsha for parents, grandparents, and so on. That might or might not be a valid idea. It's definitely unique to Parashara Hora. We don't find this nor in Yavana Jataka, we don't find it in Briha Jataka, we don't find it in Saravali. Basically, we don't find it in any other text. It's a unique idea to Brihat Parashara Hora. On the other hand, the Parivrittì Vargas, due to their geometrical structure, might hint towards that. And here we have a septagon, which is, according to the planetary days rulership, it's the geometrical structure of Saturn, because Saturn rules the 7th day. And Saptamsha is usually connected to children, but in Jaimini's sutras it's also connected to relationships, to marriage. And we can think, why is this so? What do these two topics have to do with Saturn? Well, Saturn is a planet of responsibility. So it might be that the Saptamsha is showing how well we can bear the results of our actions, how much responsibility will we take. Because a child is a product of our actions, of our sexual actions. So a well-situated Saturn in the Saptamsha, related to the important karakas, might show that yes, we are able to take responsibility, we are able to act responsibly. And also for marriage is like a covenant, you know, it's an oath. So again, if we are not responsible, we will wreak havoc on the marriage. So again, it's about responsibility, it's about commitment. So this is what Saturn is about. Okay, and then we come to the Navamsha, another harmonic Varga. If we had Yavana Jataka constructing the Saptamsha in a different non-harmonic way, I'm not aware of any different type of Navamsha that would not be harmonic, because the Navamsha is kind of impossible to create unless we use a harmonic approach. So here we have the natural order of the zodiac repeating 9 times around the circle. And while doing that and connecting different instances, different Navamshas of Aries, as I have done here, we get a nonagon, which is a geometrical form of Ketu. So it makes sense that also we are looking at the Navamsha, especially in Jaimini Upadesha Sutra. The Navamsha is used in the technique of the Swamsha, although some would say, okay, we don't really know if it's about the Navamsha or not, but I have tested this quite extensively and even published an article when I presented charts of 20 Bhakti yogis, and I applied the technique of Jaimini quite rigidly, and it works in the Navamsha pretty much like textbook examples. So yeah, the Navamsha, Jaimini gives, you know, also the moksha yogas in the Navamsha. So Navamsha is, as we see, it's related to Ketu by geometry and numerology. So it's also the spiritual, the inner part of our lives. And what is interesting now, and it is very important, and it will be probably most interesting to those who are into Jaimini astrology, is that today the Shodasha Varga scheme, as I mentioned, is pretty much a default Varga scheme. It's considered this is the Vedic thing, you know, the Shodasha Varga. And Parashar Hora is now like the Bible of Vedic astrology, unfortunately. Nothing against the texts, there's great stuff in there, but there's also quite a bit of corruption. Yeah, and today those who are performing Jaimini's techniques, technique that's called a Yogada, selecting a planet that is able to engage in yogas, that is able to produce, Jaimini uses Navamsha and Drekana for it. The Navamsha and Drekana in Jaimini system are the two main Vargas. And people do it with the Navamsha and the other type of Drekana, the planetary ruler Drekana, which they create as a chart, but it is erroneous in my opinion. And the commentators of Jaimini, they say that Parivrittì Vargas should be used for Jaimini's system. And we will see now why Jaimini would use the Parivrittì Drekana, all the Vargas as Parivrittì harmonics. So In the middle circle we have the Drakanas, and in the innermost circle we have the Navamshas. So these are the Parivritti Drakanas, again, not the triplicity type of Parashara or Varahamihira. So if we take the Aries Drakana to be a zodiacal sign, okay, let's first look at the zodiacal sign of Aries. So Aries has Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Drakanas. And if we zoom in and take Aries as the zodiacal sign, it has Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Navamshas. So basically what we have is the Navamshas are the Drakanas of Drakanas. So the Drakanas are Drakanas of the main sign, and the Navamshas are Drakanas of the Drakanas. It's the Drakanas further subdivided. And if we look at Taurus, we have Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Drakanas. And if we look at Taurus Drakana, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. So these two Vargas are completely harmonically related. They are basically, the Navamsha is the harmonic of the Drakana. So, and we all know, 1, 3, 9, there's the magic. So yeah, it makes sense to use this type of Drakana, and in my opinion it makes the Parivritti harmonic Vargas make a lot of sense. And I also read 2 articles from 2 different Indian astrologers who are arguing in favor of Parivritti Vargas, and their opinion is that somewhere in the Middle Ages the true understanding of the Vargas got lost or corrupted, and instead of, go back a little bit, instead of doing this, going from Aries to Leo to Sagittarius, they started to do this. They started to put Leo and Sagittarius into Aries, which might or not be true. Maybe they are just different approaches. But they say that the Parivritti Vargas, they also call them Brahma Vargas, because it's just the zodiac on different, deeper and deeper levels. And then the last one in the SAPTAVARGA scheme is the Dvadasamsha. It's the 12 portions of the sign and today I will give a lecture on the Dvadasamsha, just dedicated to Dvadasamsha, because this is a division that we find in basically all the ancient systems of zodiacal or horoscopic astrology. And it's quite natural. If I ask you, I put the zodiac in front of you, which is a 12-fold division, what would be the first idea? If I told you, okay, now divide this 12-fold division further into smaller portions. Probably all of us will think, okay, we'll just do it again, we'll just divide further into 12 parts. Some say that the Dvadasamshas are really as old as the zodiac itself, and they have a specific arrangement. So we have a micro zodiac in each of the signs, but it starts with the sign itself. So every sign starts with its own Dvadasamsha, as we can see. Aries starts with Aries, Taurus starts with Taurus, and then it proceeds in the natural order of the zodiac. The Dvadasamshas are quite well documented, I would say, almost on par with the Navamshas, a bit less. And in the Parashara Hora, there is the idea that the Dvadasamsha should be looked for parents and grandparents, thus for ancestors. Some people are today making attempts to read the past life from the Dvadasamsha, really like the depth that we have to our ancestors and all sorts of things, which may or may not be valid, but we should be aware that these are new contemporary ideas and that prior to the discovery of Parashara Hora or recompilation of it, we don't have these ideas. The Dvadasamsha is just a division that is on par with line itself. That's the idea. So if a planet is, say, in a bad condition, but it's in its own Dvadasamsha, it's as good as the planet would be in its own sign. So it's an important for fine-tuning the dignity, and there are also different techniques of using it. And believe it or not, the most documented use that we have is there in the Hellenistic and Persian texts, actually more than in Indian texts. Yavarna Jataka speaks about it and mentions a similar technique that I will discuss later this day in depth. Similar technique to what the Persians and the Hellenistic astrologers did in the past. But for the most part, in Indian astrology, is mostly used in the same way as other rulership Vargas. One would just see the Dvadasamsha ruler and then look back in the main chart and see what this Dvadasamsha ruler, what kind of relationship has with the planet it rules. Is it aspecting the ascendant, and so on. There are various yogas there. And sure, I think that Dvadasamsha is fascinating because we have a zodiac within the zodiac. It's very natural, very intuitive. I don't think that we should really apply a specific meaning to it because it's just the zodiac on a deeper level, you know. And we will talk more about this in the afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Central European Time. And I think that that was it from my part. How are we? Okay. So thank you. You're welcome to listen more on the Dvadasamsha later. Ashwin, you're muted. Yeah. No,
Good.
it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this was a more structured version of this presentation than you did previously. But
yeah, this was a little bit more systematic, I guess.
Yeah, so I figured it out. So yeah, that's there. So anyway, thank you so much for your instant efforts at the last moment. So we'll see again. I think your lecture is just 8 hours away from now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rok.
Thank you. Any questions?